This podcast was brought to you by... Wait, what do you mean we don't have a sponsor? Was it something we said? Damn it, we don't even do horror videos.
Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. Allergy season is great.
Yeah, we are now in the month of July, which, on the positive note, means fairly good weather, and by the time this goes out, the two of us would have had our birthdays, so yeah, that's always a positive.
Another year older. I'm not complaining too hard considering that in this equation, one of us is 6 years older than the other.
Yeah, and he has the misfortune of working in a school, so yeah, trust me, that's the quickest way to feel old, folks. Also, given that we're recording this at the start of July, I'm also really hoping we didn't have the heat waves of June, because I can't deal with that.
Oh god, yeah, and to think, the desert I live in hasn't even hit 90 Fahrenheit yet.
Oh god. I don't think I can even survive in that. I mean, come on, I'm a British nerd with ginger roots. The heat is like kryptonite to me.
That has to be among the best phrases ever spoken, along with I am a nihilistic wolf shepherd with an anchored and nothing to lose. Thank you, tabletop. But yes, we're in the season of heat and allergies, so let's get this party rolling.
Indeed. And as always, we're going to do that with our first section, which is...
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
So our first question from Vice reads,
How would you want the story of Super Mario RPG to be like if it was ever made? Also involve DK in some way.
Jonin, over to you, because I've never played it.
Well, admittedly, I haven't played it in a long time because I feel like I'm about to commit blasphemy saying this, but it's not one of my personal favorites. I mean, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, out of all the Mario RPGs, it's not the one that grabbed me the most. I mean, I played about 2/3 of the way through it. I just got bored and never picked it up again, basically.
That's fair enough. Part of the reason that I've never emulated it is that it just never seemed like my style.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't bad. Like, I can understand why people like it. It definitely has this nice sense of charm and some rather unique characters that came out of it, like Gino and Mallow. The problem being, in my case, is that, well, it didn't come out in Europe for a long time, and it only happened through the Virtual Console, and by then, well, I was kind of throwing back to an old school era of RPGs where crap just happens for the sake of it, really. Like, you're going along and, we're visiting these frog people, and, there's a wacky wedding hijinks involving this weird robot man, and of course we're now going to fight pirates. Yeah, I know we've had no transition into this, but yeah, pirates, here you go. It's that kind of thing.
Oh, so basically about the same as the average conflict in Final Fantasy 1.
Well, in fairness, this was a collab between Nintendo and Square Enix. That's why the sequel has almost never happened.
That explains some things. Oh god, I'm just imagining Super Mario RPG, the MMO, Final Fantasy 14 style.
Well, that's definitely one way they could go about it. I mean, I'm sure many people would be happy to have characters on the same race as Gino, because, yeah, Gino is one of those fan-favorite characters. Admittedly, I can kind of see why, given that he's meant to be an agent of the stars, and he possesses a doll and gives it machine guns, so...
You know, for kids.
Yeah, sort of. They're very kid-friendly guns and just to add sparkles. Although, I will also say, for the sake of balance, one of my favourite jokes in the Mario series happens in there because, to give some context for this, especially since it's going to lead up to a point, because, yeah, I am getting back to the point of the question, Vice, I do promise you. Gino's character is that a star spirit possesses the doll of this little toad kid, and basically he possesses an action figure in order to investigate what's going on. And there's like an alternate scene where he goes back to visit this kid and says, "Hello, I have possessed your action figure. I apologize, but I'll be leaving for a while." And just for context, this is a kid who's been essentially using this action figure as a Gary's do. Like, and Mario's going up against Bowser. Oh no, Bowser's completely stunned Mario, but here comes Gino to save the day. You know, that kind of thing. So the kids, he sees like the real life Gino possessed, and he goes, yeah, that's fine. Mario's just a shy hero, you'll need all the help you can get. And you can just see in the background Mario pulling back his fist in order to punch him and having to be held back by Mallow.
Wow.
Which, yeah, given that Mario has so much patience, he's willing to work with the rabbits of all people, it really shows you how annoying that kid is.
Yeah. I mean... He nearly got punched in the face by the happiest mascot in gaming.
Indeed. But yeah, getting back to the question, if they ever did make a sequel to it, based on my limited knowledge, I know it's really weird for a Mario game to expand on the lore, because, let's face it, there isn't really that much lore to begin with. But even if it was just to see what the heck Gino's homeworld was like, because... it was literally a case of a star person just coming down and possessing an action figure. Like, we never really got to find out anything about his race, so yeah, nice to have them be involved. It would also be nice to involve the Cloud Kingdom so that the original party could get back together, even if we just had a quick cameo by Mallow. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what the sequel would be, because let's face it, the Mario RPG plots, they very rarely follow any continuity. Like, the Mario and Luigi series kind of, sort of does, but only in the sense that we'll make callbacks occasionally, and for some reason make Chippy a reoccurring character. I don't know if anyone was asking for that, but... but yeah, that's really all I have to say. Also, I guess, who knows, maybe Donkey Kong can just come at the last minute and save everyone.
Oh god, he's the Athos.
I was actually thinking something more along the lines of wrestling, where it gets to the final battle, there's a stalemate going on, it's not really going anywhere, and then DK just comes out, does a giant punch, and then walks off.
Okay, so correction, he's the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's see, how does that work out? Shall we say the Stone Kong Steve Donkey? That was the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life.
He comes out, squashes two bananas together, and then...
Oh god, what have I done?
Apologies to anyone who doesn't follow wrestling, as this has now become incredibly confusing.
Oh, wow, well, at least we haven't started making Goldberg jokes yet.
That's for another series. Anyway... The second question from Vice, which I think is gonna be mostly me again, unless Sven's been working on any other projects, is...
has there ever been a script or two for a review that you had to scrap due to strange reasons?
Yeah, that's on you. I've only just recently started planning countdowns, and I'm way too early into that to have started having more stories, basically.
Yeah, that's fair enough. To be honest, I can only think of one example off the top of my head, because there have been plenty of scrapped scripts, but they're not really for exciting reasons. It's been that I looked at it and think, it's not really funny, or I don't really have a lot to say, or I decide to just completely take it in a new direction. One of the many series I've planned that's been in development hell for ages has been the Tales of retrospective I was planning, which has gone through several format changes. So, yeah, the only one that's happened for a strange reason was Fragile Dream. Now, some long-time fans of the show may remember that I mentioned I was renting it and planned to do a review of it. In fact, some of you may remember that last review of the classic era of VGT, Evil Under the Sun, it ended with a teaser saying that was the next video. Something odd then happened. I acquired a DVD recorder to capture the footage. That's basically what I do. I get a rewritable DVD, stick it in, record the gameplay footage, and then get the footage off the disc. Initially, what I used to do, because I didn't have another way of doing it, was put the disc in, record it through Fraps, and then just leave the disc running and go away and do something else for a while. This was an iffy method, Well, partially because A, it was really time-consuming, and B, well, Fraps is a good program at capturing the quality, but the disk size of each and every file is frankly ridiculous. Like, 5 minutes becomes 5 gigabytes of data, and...
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's okay for short bursts, but if you're doing long sessions, it really eats away at the disk space, and then, on top of that, there's always this 50-50 chance, because I don't know if it's the fault of my editing software or Fraps, but sometimes I will get to an issue where I'm converting the footage I have, and then all of a sudden the computer will decide it can't handle it and just crash. Like, continuously, or just get to a certain point and go, nope, crash. So I have to start the export process all over again, which is kind of frustrating when you're trying to do it in a review. I eventually changed the system and found a program called MPEG Streamclip, which basically allows you to just rip the footage off as an MPEG file and save it in a certain area. I should also stress for legal reasons that it does not work with copyrighted DVDs, so yeah, don't think you can just stick the copy of The Matrix in there and just download it onto your computer. That doesn't work.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it only really works on, like I said, home recorded DVDs that don't have the DRM on it. Anyway, that's basically how I get gameplay footage a lot of the time for anything that's not PC, or 3DS recently, as yeah, I've got a capture card for that now, but I digress. I swapped the system over, and I decided, okay, you know what, let's stop all this faffing about. Let's just do this again with the DVDs I have a Fragile Dream. So, just pop the discs in, copy, there we go, we have the footage for a good chunk of the game. Okay, why is the first disc not working? Okay, that's a crap ton of scratches, that makes a lot of sense, right. Not ideal, but I guess we can get around this. How the hell am I going to transfer all these FRAP files? Maybe try exporting them? No, you're crashing. Okay, that's lovely. That's really, really lovely. And then something else happened. The laptop that I'd been doing all of my editing on until that time, well, its battery died.
Oh, God.
So I had to basically transfer a crap ton of things over. Of course, well, Fraps files were ridiculously big, so I couldn't really do them all in consistent patches. So basically what happened is all the footage of the first, I want to say 2 to 3 hours of the game, which includes some really important plot points that I couldn't do without, is all over the freaking place, and I'm trying to remember, okay, which laptop is it on? Is there a way to recover it? Can I even get this footage to work after all this?
I'm reminded of the old Abbott and Costello skit, Who's On First?
So yeah, that's kind of what happened with Fragile Dream, is that there is a large chunk of the game footage that was missing, so I couldn't go ahead of the review. And you may be thinking, well, why not just play the game and capture the footage? Funny story, it's a rental.
You know, I wasn't even paying attention to that detail and all of that, so you just set up the perfect brick joke to this.
Yeah, it was a rental, so it's back with the rental company, which means I'd have to order it out again. And, well, let's just say there's about 50 other games in my queue, some of which are actually in stock and more likely to get sent to me, so... Plus, kind of a spoiler alert for the review, it's one of those games that's kind of depressing, not because of the concept of the game itself, but because it starts off really good, and then turns to shit around the revelation that happens in the second half.
Oh no, not another Twilight Princess.
Basically, yes, so it's kind of one of those things where I feel like if I play through that again, I'm not going to enjoy it because, yeah, this is a great bit, but I know what's coming.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't want to go back through that either.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that game has some of Johnny Bosch's best performances, but at the same time, that's part of the reason why I believe Roy Havenstone called it that it was essentially my Duke Nukem Forever of reviews, because it's what I kept hinting at, but it never came out.
And at this point, if you actually did release the review, after all the hype, it might just end up seeming like an anticlimax.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although Duke Nukem was less an anticlimax and more of a punch in the face. But that's beside the point. Our next question comes from Infernity Zero.
What do you think of the non-action big bad archetype?
Yeah, this one is kind of interesting, because on the one hand, they can be difficult to set up, especially if they are in an action story where, well, they're essentially not going to fight anyone. But they can definitely work, though. It all depends on how you sell it. Like, to give one bad example right this before I lead on to the positives, the film Kiss of the Dragon is a good example of how not to do it, because, well, the way I sum up that film is it's a clash between those who can act and those who can fight, and the winner is Jet Li because he can do both. The people who can fight basically can't act, so they're continuously silent, and then you have all the people who can act who are doing their whole cop procedural thing. Like, there's I'm quickly doing a Google search because I can't remember the character's name offhand. There we go. Inspector Really? I did a Google search and that's his name? Inspector Richard is...
Jonin, have you checked the Closet of Evil recently for its king and sole occupant?
He's meant to be this corrupt French cop, but he comes off as very underwhelming, to be honest. Like, I'm struggling to remember anything he did apart from get a prostitute hooked up on drugs and die a pretty pathetic death.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of a big bad operating behind the scenes, but you really have to get them involved at some point, else you run the risk of them turning into show Littlefinger.
Yeah, basically, but they can also work. In fact, bringing in some positive examples, and this is actually kind of funny because we're just making jokes about it. In wrestling, you can often get some really good non-action big bad archetypes, particularly when, well, there are two examples of this. One in the case of Lucha Underground, where you have an evil manager like Dario Cueto. That's sort of the classic thing where he's, like you said, manipulating everything from behind the scenes so that he can make all the other wrestlers fight each other for his own amusement. Occasionally directs much bigger and stronger wrestlers to go and beat up the rest in a kind of interesting double cross and the like. And then you can also have... You can occasionally have someone act as what's called the hype man. So if you have a wrestler that's physically athletic but can't really speak or act very well, then that's when you get in the hype man to essentially do the talking for them. Like, the current one that's the most active in WWE right now is Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, but you can't really call Paul Heyman a villain.
Not completely. I mean, part of Heyman's whole shtick is being just basically an all-around slime. But if you really want to get into WWE villains, Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah, duh.
He used to be an action big bad, but I think that sort of ended with the infamous incident where he blew out both of his kneecaps trying to get on stage. I really hate to make fun of that, because the guy is 72. But, he was trying to make an intimidating interruption to a match, and hamstrung himself trying to sit up, so he just wound up sitting there in the middle of the match, looking angry at everyone.
Oh, God. Actually, now that you mention it, I completely forgot one good example, Stephanie McMahon.
Oh, God. The woman nobody likes.
Yeah, that's definitely a good example of that. Sort of the very controlling, manipulative big man behind the scenes that essentially orders Triple H to take care of any slight she doesn't like. So.
Yeah, and actually, this has just struck me out of nowhere. Speaking of non-action big bads, Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I mean, especially in the film version where he is the dictator of Paris.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that actually explains a lot, because, yeah, Inspector Richard, I still can't believe that's his name, Inspector Richard, aside from not having an intimidating presence, he also didn't have that much power. He was just all of, I mean, I know that's weird to say of a corrupt French cop, but it feels like the best he could do was make casual explanations to Chinese policemen. Oh yeah, your man's gone rogue. I don't know what he's done. I don't know why he would run away from us when we had machine guns pointed out. Yeah. The best way to make this sort of non-action big bad intimidating is for them to either be someone of keen intelligence or someone with a lot of power, and I think that's why it definitely works in a wrestling scenario when someone is the manager, and therefore they can go, okay, yeah, you're kind of the big strong dude at the middle of the arena, but don't forget, I'm the one that pays your check at the end of the day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or in the case of Frollo, I can arbitrarily decide that you'll be executed tomorrow.
Yeah, pretty much. I can accuse you of a sin and burn you at the stake.
So, yeah, I guess the big bad can be intimidating. You just need to find a way to replace physical power with, well, I guess political power?
Yeah, or just some sort of influence, really. I could bring up Palpatine, but as has been established, even though he's ancient enough to literally look so wrinkled he's melting, he is very much an action big bad.
Yeah, ever since the prequels, and even then, it's thinking that, oh, he's not that old, he was melted by force lightning, because apparently that can do that?
Oh, get this. Apparently, that wasn't his face melting, that was the lightning melting his disguise.
What? Oh, God.
It's not an MD session without a joke about George Lucas and the prequels.
I mean, in fairness, he does kind of deserve it, I'm afraid.
Hey, speaking of non-action big bads...
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's best we swiftly move on. The next question from Infinity Zero.
Favourite and least favourite crossovers you've seen?
You want to go first, or should I?
You know what? I've had a lot of questions aimed at me, so I'll let you go first.
Turnabout Storm. A crossover that in no universe should have worked, but in ways it actually worked better than at least certain episodes of one participating series. I am, of course, talking about semi-legendary crossover of My Little Pony and Phoenix Wright, which had the additional benefit of getting members of both fandoms into the other fandom.
Yeah, that was a really, really good crossover. I mean, it's really, really long since the show plays out the format of Phoenix Wright, as in a series of multiple episodes that play the visual novel style and last for hours at a time.
He's not joking when he says that it's played out in the style of Phoenix Wright because it's literally a Phoenix Wright court case with ponies.
Yeah, that is basically it. It even has, like, it's a very mild spoiler, but halfway through it even has that thing that happens in certain Phoenix Wright cases where the view switches to another protagonist for a bit so they can do their half of the investigation.
Yep. And possibly my favorite part of it, the characters are self-aware of how ridiculous this situation is.
Indeed.
I mean, Jonin and I have quoted one line many, many times. I feel my masculinity going, gone.
That is a thing too. Aside from being self-aware, it is also really well written and so quotable and has the same humor that both series are known for.
Yeah, and the characters are written perfectly, which you almost never get with fan fiction. But in this, it works.
Yeah, it definitely comes from someone who loves both series and kind of... See, here's the thing. I'm someone of the mind that any crossover can work as long as you get to the essence of what the series is about. And I believe I wrote a blog review of this back in the day, but essentially what the writer does... future me, please insert the name of the author. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. See, the story is written by Nero Artemist and David Carson, but the actual YouTube channel is called PWAAMLPFIM. Kind of gets the fact that both Phoenix Wright and My Little Pony are essentially character stories based in a world where sheer absurd wackiness can happen, because let's be honest, Phoenix Wright isn't short of quirky, brightly coloured characters either. So.
Yeah, I mean, the main protagonist is a lawyer in a blue suit with a black hedgehog on his head.
And that's not even mentioning some of the witnesses he's had to cross-examine over the years.
I point to the party clown, the defendant of one case in the second game, who was basically a flamboyant pink Kuja knockoff who was secretly a hillbilly.
Or my personal favourite, a monk who occasionally transforms into a heavy metal guitarist named Peace and Understanding.
Oh god. You told me about that guy. I still can't get over his name.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only way that name could get any sillier is if his name was Warren Peace.
Oh god, I wouldn't put it past this game. I mean, that case was already looking at the death of a guard called Pat Roll, and...
Oh god, really?
Yeah, and the client Phoenix is defending is a tour guide literally called I'll Be All Guide.
Yeah, so you see our point about Phoenix, right? It's grounded in reality, but not our reality.
It's grounded in a reality.
Yeah, it's grounded in a reality that exists. And of course, My Little Pony is My Little Pony. There's magic involved. At one point, the main character is appointed a princess, and for once that role actually means something legitimately badass. Real talk, though, I'm forever annoyed at myself that I didn't include Twilight on the top 5 fictional princesses list, but that's another chat for another time. So basically, you have a crossover of silly but ultimately grounded with My Little Pony, which is about the pinnacle of childish high fantasy.
Indeed, yes. And yet it does manage to do the crossover very well, and that's also the key point. Because aside from the fact that it's initially a murder trial, so obviously someone dies, it still manages to maintain the child-friendliness, so it's not like the billions of other My Little Pony fanfictions that have, well, basically little girls shouldn't Google My Little Pony these days, that's what...
Oh, Jesus Christ. Long story short, guys, there's a reason I don't associate with the fan base. But... it's a serious storyline just running beneath the surface. I mean, this is a minor spoiler for later on in the series, but let's just say the victim was an asshole. But it's still bouncy and fun, as both series should really be, which you can really get the sense of given all of the Phoenix Wright musical cues.
Well, you couldn't have a Phoenix Wright story without them, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't encountered a single entry in Phoenix Wright media that doesn't somehow include the theme song Turnabout Sisters.
Indeed, yes.
Of course, though, even the inherently child-friendly nature of the series doesn't stop them from making some really adventurous jokes. Jonin knows about the scene and the ending.
Yeah.
To quote Edgeworth, do you have any shame?
And to follow up the quotes, I'm going to take a bath now with a live toaster.
So, yeah, basically, if you want a series that shows how to do literally everything right with a crossover, there's your entry.
Indeed. For mine, I'm going to save some time and just say Project Cross Zone. Project Cross Zone 1 and 2. And for reasons why, you can go through our backlog and you'll find me doing a really extensive review of the whole thing.
Lucina fighting side by side with Segata Sanchiro. Still the best thing ever.
I know, right? I would also include the Sonic and Mega Man crossover Worlds Collide, but again, I've already done a full review of that. As for least favourite... oh god, I'm about to commit 2 blasphemous comments here.
Strap yourself in, folks.
I want to say the gameplay of the series is pretty good. Well, I'm pretty sure the other one's good. I haven't managed to play that much of it so far, and they both have a lot of charm to them. So I'm not saying I hate them, but I still don't think that neither Kingdom Hearts or Super Smash Bros. Work very well as crossovers, and now I see the flames outside my house.
Well, to be fair, okay, you're gonna attract a lot of with going after Smash Bros., but Kingdom Hearts is sort of the butt of jokes now after, well, how badly they did the crossovers in Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah, it was just, like, admittedly I haven't played much of it. It's something I've been meaning to... I've been keeping up with the story of Kingdom Hearts with Let's Plays, and I am gonna get around to actually picking up one for myself one of these days. So far, the only experience I have is the demo Dream Drop Distance, but it's one of those things where I kind of like the original and how it did it, but ever since then, it's just become a more and more convoluted mess with Final Fantasy characters showing up in roles that are completely unlike what the real characters are doing, and the Disney characters just showing up out of contractual obligation, more or less. Like, Maleficent is still a big role, but everyone else, they just kind of show up because they have to.
Yeah, although I will say this, the concept of Mickey Mouse as, like, the badass Leonidas figure king is amazing.
Okay, yeah, that I will grant you, but yeah, he, Donald, and Goofy are pretty much the only ones who do get these significant roles in the main story. Pretty much every other Disney movie, aside from the main mouse, they're just kind of included as side characters in the dungeons, and really they never affect the main plot. It's just, we've now got to go in this area and reenact a Disney movie for a bit, and who knows, maybe we'll have a plot twist towards the end about the main plot.
Yeah. And that's not even getting into the short end of the stick on which the entire Final Fantasy cast spins every single game. And I mean, I'm not even a fan of Final Fantasy, but come on!
Yeah, I think Cloud Tifa and possibly Sephiroth are really the only ones who have maintained their characters. Otherwise, it's more, we're gonna have these people just hang around Traverse Town forever and not do anything. We're gonna have the Wardens of You characters show up as Dream Eaters to remind you that game exists and then not do anything with it.
Yeah, and may I point out that I'm not sure if it says more about Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy VIII that Kingdom Hearts made Squall completely out of character, and he was more likable than the original Squall.
Yeah, that is a problem. I think Squall is one of those characters that's done a lot better in the crossover games like Kingdom Hearts and Dissidia.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But it's one of those things. The Disney characters and the Final Fantasy characters have pretty much been sidelined for basically Nomura trying to fill in plot holes that no one really cared about that much, and making Xehanort's plan more and more convoluted by the second. I seriously still don't know what his end game is anymore.
Real talk. Once this is all over, I'm going to be obliged to write a Xehanort versus Aizen death battle, because this is ridiculous.
I mean, when part of your plan involves having multiple versions of you from across the timeline to do something darkness, that's when you really need to look at your series and ask yourself, wait, what am I doing? Is this getting a bit too overcomplicated?
Yeah, does any of this really make any sense at all?
And the reason I include Smash Bros. Is, don't get me wrong, it's a really fun game, and it's nice to see all of these characters in the same run. I enjoy playing it with my friends and family, but
the plot sucks.
Yeah, well, there is no plot. That's the thing. I could even forgive the fact that there was no plot if it wasn't the fact that the characters don't interact at all. You can't even blame this on, oh, it's a fighting game, these things never happen. After the likes of Injustice and Injustice 2, where the characters are trading quips back and forth between each other, making references and having unique dialogue against each other, and from what I hear, this is extended over to the Marvel vs. Capcom games as well. Even Mortal Kombat's doing this. So it's not very good dialogue, because it's still Mortal Kombat, but it's something.
Yeah, and I say the plot sucks because the one time that they tried to actually explain everything that was going on with Smash Bros. Brawl, that failed tremendously.
But even then, that's one of my biggest problems with that crossover, the fact that it doesn't explain anything. It just sets up this story like, oh yeah, it's a world where trophies fight. Why? Well, we don't have to think about it then. and no one acts in character throughout that entire crossover. Like, okay, Luigi's kind of afraid and Diddy is a bit scared of giant monsters, but that's it. That's the full extent of personality. Otherwise, they're all in roles which could be played practically by anyone, to the point where Rayquaza, the Sky Dragon, is hanging around in a lake even though there's Gyarados for that, and DDT, who basically always built his castles as great, big, giant, colourful monstrosities that say, screw you all, I'm awesome. And we're supposed to believe that in the Smash Bros. Universe he lives in a small black shack of a castle.
Yeah. This is the sad thing, and I'm gonna make a really quick recommendation on the side right here in saying this. Matt Mercer's There Will Be Brawl is truer to these characters.
Yeah, and considering that's meant to be a dark film noir interpretation of them, that's actually kind of sad.
Yeah, and I mean, it is awesome because it's directed and chiefly starred by Matt Mercer, and Kyle Hebert is involved, but it's still a deliberate black comedy take on Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and it's still more accurate.
So yeah, I think that provides suitable answers to those questions, and now it's time for us to move on. Yes, sending you the next question from Jonin Monkey.
Oh boy. Folks, it's that time of the day again. Our next question comes from the immortal TJ. From Toon Junkie,
Who do you think will win this year's Bassmaster tournament? Noctis, Big the Cat, or Ryu from Breath of Fire?
Well, this is kind of awkward since I already have knowledgeable experience on one of them. And ironically, that knowledgeable and experience means that I know he's going to lose.
it's funny because I thought for sure that as a cat he would have a biological advantage.
You would think so. However, there is one problem. It kind of plays into the storytelling of Big the Cat's whole segment, but it's basically that, yes, he knows how to use a fishing rod. He can sit there patiently, wait for the fish to bite it. He can then reel it in. He can't hold on to the bloody thing, though. Like, literally, Big's goal from start to finish is the exact same. Fish Froggy out of the water. And the problem is, every single level ends the same way. You reel it, he catches it, and then Froggy literally leaps out of his hand a second later. So his big victory quote is, "Oh no, what am I gonna do?"
I feel sorry for Big the Cat's entire existence, really.
It's really unfortunate when the producer of Sonic in a Q&A freely admitted that Big was his biggest regret, but...
Ha ha, pun?
Oh god, I just realised what I accidentally did.
I'm familiar with none of them, so I'm just gonna say, may the best anime pretty boy and or anthropomorphic animal win.
Yeah, I mean...
What a phrase!
I'm surprised Link isn't included on this list, although then again he's probably disqualified for using the illegal lure.
And honestly, probably he would be instant champion, because this three-way seems like a matchup doomed to end in disaster.
Yeah, moving on from that, our final question of the month also comes from Toon Junkie, and he asks...
I'm in the market to buy a giant robot mech suit to which to fight space monsters. But with such a rich and diverse market out there, I'm having trouble deciding on which mech dealer to choose. Got any good shopping tips?
I'll just say this, don't go with the Atlas mech from the Mass Effect series, because they're super easy to hijack.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard Gundams are pretty good, but they're also ridiculously expensive and kept under heavy military guard, so you're probably not going to casually get one.
Yeah, and I've also heard that Evangelions are good, but on the flip side, you will probably end up having nightmares for the rest of your life, and more than likely you'll cause the apocalypse.
Yeah, and depending on the model, some people can take control of your unit outside.
Yeah. And then, of course, I'm not sure if they count as mechs or just cosmic monstrosities, but you could always have a chat with Speedy the salesman about purchasing your very own Gigas.
Yeah, but they were really, really expensive.
Yeah, I mean, It's one thing if your mech suit may end the world, it's another if the cost of your mech suit is ending the world.
So, yeah, that's the problem. A lot of mech suits are all under lock and key these days.
Honestly, I think your best bet would just be a good old-fashioned suit of T-51 power armor.
I will take your word for that.
If you ever replay New Vegas, you'll encounter one eventually.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's a they had armor suits in Fallout. I keep forgetting that. Yeah, that's probably your best bet now that I think about it.
To be fair, they're easy to forget in Fallout New Vegas because you're too focused on being the best in the West.
Yeah, plus I think they made it more of a thing in Fallout 4, from what I understand of the marketing.
Yeah, they actually made the robot suits more... robot-y? So, yeah, basically, TJ, my advice to you is this. Get a good old-fashioned suit of T-51, put on some 1920s jazz music, and rip apart a field of Deathclaws. It's how I decompress after a day at work.
Fair enough. The only other suggestion I could probably make is maybe get in touch with Diva and ask where she gets her weird mech thing that has game controllers.
That's also a thought.
And with that, the Q&A session comes to a close. Once again, thank you for sending us your questions, everyone. And if you're new to the show, please, by all means, send us any questions. Come on, don't be shy, and please send us more.
We're not begging yet.
No, we're not begging. I mean, my hands may be clasped in a position that looks like they're begging, but I assure you...
You're just praying to the god of questions.
Yes, the only reason I am on my knees is because I've blown out both kneecaps.
You used to be a reenactor like me, but then you took an arrow to the knee.
God damn it. I was trying to be classy with WWE reference and a callback, and you bring back Skyrim? Really?
I'm so sorry.
Right, we're just going to pretend that never happened and move straight on to the next section of the show, which is...
Reviews!
This is the section where the two of us review something we've read, watched, or played this month. And I'm gonna go first, because we have one big review later on this month that's gonna be Sven's thing, but I kind of wanted to talk about this, especially given as I teased it last month. Although I will stress, part of the reason why this is going to be a short review is that I'm making it a spoiler-free review, since it's a game I know Sven plans to pick up at a later date when he has money.
I appreciate that.
The game is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia.
A game of which I've heard literally nothing but good things.
Yeah, so the short version of the review is, it's great, buy it. But I suppose you probably want more details about that. For those of you who aren't aware, Fire Emblem Echoes is a remake of the second ever game in the series that was originally made for the NES, that was simply called Fire Emblem Gaiden, or Fire Emblem Side Story. It's a game that was so unlike any of the other Fire Emblems that it became kind of a cold hit, hence why they remade it years later. Because that's the interesting thing, which will be a stumbling block, especially if you're more used to the modern Fire Emblem games, because the mechanics work a little differently this time round, and thankfully, one of the things that you'll say right off the bat is that it is a really, really good remake, because they've tried to remake Fire Emblem games before. Specifically, the first one with the DS version, Shadow Dragon, and it was god-awful.
Yeah, I can vouch. That game sucked, and it didn't even have a forgiving difficulty curve to make up for it. In fact, the difficulty curve was so steep it had an overhang.
Yeah, that was kind of the problem. It tried to give it an overhaul in terms of presentation and included a failsafe where if you lost too many characters, new ones with insulting puns like awful or loser would come in to save you. But otherwise, it was pretty much the exact same game, note for note, and with some of the really, really dated design choices. But thankfully, I never got that feeling in Echoes. Because it's clear that Fire Emblem Gaiden was the experimental phase, and honestly, with a lot of these things, whilst it feels different from the modern Fire Emblem games, it makes sense within its own logic, and it doesn't feel dated. Like, one of the mechanics I always call back to whenever I'm, let's be honest, insulted Shadow Dragon, is the fact that Marth the Lord had to essentially do everything, because he was the only one who could visit towns, he was the only one who could open chests, and 50% of the time he was the only one who could recruit units. And given that he had such low movement speed, it was frankly ridiculous that he was doing all of these things rather than, delegating.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
But in the case of Echoes, it feels different, but it works on its own logic. Like, for one, there is no weapon triangle in this game, but they make up for it by classes having specific weaknesses to each other, and some classes having abilities which are fun to use, but you can see why they weren't in the modern games, because they're ridiculously broken. Like, just to give an example of this, archers can attack at close range, which, yeah, I'm sure some of you would be thinking, oh, why, that's awesome, why was it not included in modern Fire Emblem games? It would mean I wouldn't have to defend them so much. Well, probably because it was a way to balance them after, in Fire Emblem Echoes, they can not only attack at close range, they can also attack from 2 spaces away, and 3 spaces away.
Wow!
And when they're promoted, some can even attack from 4 spaces away. So yeah, they were kind of broken.
God!
I mean, the way it balances out is the fact that the armored units, the generals, and especially their final promotions barons, get an ability which halves bow damage, which is already ridiculous enough. But then when you realize that all generals have a high defense stat anyway, it pretty much is just reduce arrows to 1. So you can essentially just have a general just walking through this crowd of archers going, do-do-do-do-do. Oh, there's something there.
To be fair, that is pretty much the point of the entire class.
Yeah, so it does completely work on its own logic, but I can also understand why they didn't include it in future games, especially Dread Fighters. The best way I could describe a Dread Fighter is they are like a Swordmaster, except on top of everything else, they have an ability which halves magic damage, and they've already got boosted resistance anyway, so basically, there is very little that can get in their way. Because, yeah, technically you can send a general to go up against them. Problem is, because they're swordmasters, they have enough speed and luck to dodge the bloody attack, so yeah, they're kind of a bugger to fight. Really fun to use, but kind of a bugger to fight.
Wow. That's, yeah, that's pretty brutal.
There are also other attacks to keep in mind, like magic, rather than costing usability points, it costs HP, which sounds bad until you realise that A, clerics are always on standby, and B, it's very easy to get healing items, and clerics eventually gain an ability where they automatically get 5 HP of health every round anyway, so it's not too much of a bother.
Yeah. Incidentally, I'm glad that they carried over the clerics healing every turn, because anyone who's played a Fire Emblem game can tell you, clerics go squish.
Oh god,
real fast.
So, yeah, the game itself you can very easily adapt to once you get your head around the new logic, because, yeah, it does place differently. Like, the traditional Fire Emblem strategy when it comes to promotions is to wait until the character's maxed out at level 20 so you can make full advantage of the stat bonuses. But in Echoes, it's better to promote them as soon as possible because you don't get any bonuses for promotion. All you get is the stats beefed up so they're at least at the base level of the class they're trying to promote to. So if you leave it to level 20, you essentially get no bonuses for it, so it's just a lot easier to promote early.
Wow, what a ripoff.
But it definitely does make sense, and you're also gonna need it because a lot of the class bonuses come in handy, especially since one thing I'm definitely not complaining about, although I do find it kind of sad that it didn't carry over, is Falcon Knights, the promotion of the Pegasus Knights. They made their debut here, and they gain an ability which essentially means that against any monster or terrors, which appear a lot in the game, they do double damage. So
wow. So even more reason for you to use them, in other words?
Oh god, yes. Especially since, without spoiling too much, let's just say some Pegasus Knights from other Fire Emblem games make a cameo.
So I've heard. I was already a huge fan of Katria from Fire Emblems 1 and 3, and I'm eager for the opportunity to use her in my team again.
Indeed, especially since she is now fully voice acted, and that is another great thing about this game, is that the presentation is freaking amazing. Unlike Shadow Dragon, which it tried, but they were trying to use this whole pseudo 3D model realism thing, which just looks so drab, boring, and lifeless, frankly.
Yeah.
Which really didn't help a game that was already suffering. In this case, they've gone back, and in this case, they've not only updated the art so that everything looks gorgeous, but they've added voice acting. And not in the Fates and Awakening way, which was alright in everything other than the cutscenes, where you just had to hear random voice clips between every line, which, to be blunt, I turned off in Fates, because, frankly, it was just distracting the cutscene to continuously hear a stream of, "Oh, hello there, how could this be? Oh, God."
Oh, God. You have no idea. It was a great idea to bring voice actors into Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates, but not in the way they did it. That gets old real fast.
Yeah, but this time, all the cutscenes and all the battle quotes are fully voiced, and the cast is absolutely amazing. Just flat out great performances from every single character, and I'll tell you this, listening to death quotes, really hard to do. Plays with your feelings a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, they were bad enough as it was. I mean, Fire Emblem 7's death quotes were tremendously hard to get through sometimes. But with voice acting, oh dear.
Indeed, yes. Especially, you know, on YouTube you can see those don't laugh challenges. I now present to you guys a don't cry challenge, watching a video compilation of the death quotes, because I failed it a couple of times.
Challenge accepted.
Oh god. And even worse than that is, one of the parts of the presentation is that, as if your feelings couldn't get wrecked enough, after every battle there's a results screen that basically shows who killed the most units and also gives bonus experience just to kind of help you along. Now, normally you get one character that makes a random quote like, "That was an excellent victory," or, "Ooh, that was too close." You know, something like that after every battle. If someone dies, a character will make a comment saying, "Oh, the victory feels kind of hollow." But there's also a random chance that someone connected to the character that died will make a comment.
Oh, no.
Like, one of the ones that I encountered, thankfully I was playing on classic mode, so the death didn't stick, but I still got it, and it still kind of turned me up inside, because one of the two characters you recruit are a knight and archer duo of Forsyth and Python, and Python got knocked out in the map I was playing on, so the thing I heard at the results screen was Forsyth going, "Python, stop joking around." Python?
Intelligent systems. You. That's harsh.
Yeah, there were so many quotes like that, it just makes you think, oh god, what have I done? So that was another reason I kind of went on classic mode, because I wasn't taking any fucking chances, but because I knew...
I don't blame you.
Yeah, because I knew the difficulty could be harsh. But that also brings me back to one other thing. It does, unlike Shadow Dragon, it manages to balance it out by including casual mode which is the mode I actually played on, not classic. Sorry, I got the terms mixed up. But yeah, it has casual mode where the units will come back to life after the end of the chapter. And there's also a useful mechanic called Miller's Turn Wheel, which they've introduced, which is something I actually hope does come back, because the other mechanics I can take or leave, like towns might be interesting, because it is nice to learn more about the world and talk to the characters, but again, I don't mind too much. The Miller's Turn Wheel, on the other hand, you get a limited number of uses. Like, you start off with 3, but as you explore the world, you can earn cogs, which increases the number of times you can use it. And basically, it allows you to rewind time. It can either be redoing an entire turn, or just undoing a couple of actions. If you like how the rest of the turn went, you just really wish you hadn't left the mage in the firing line of the archers, so...
A Proton John quote comes to mind. Rewind space-time!
Basically, yeah, in fact, that's exactly what the Miller's Turn Wheel is. It basically allows you to rewind time a couple of times each battle so that you can correct a mistake and then move on with the information you have, rather than having to restart an entire chapter, because, damn it, Delphia's death quote was so tragic you don't want her to die.
Well, that's at least a little forgiving.
Indeed, yes. I mean, you still get the occasional harsh judgment like witches and cantors. I am so glad they didn't come back.
Oh god.
Well, cantors, they're alright, they're just annoying. They're guys who just summon new monsters to the field every other turn. Witches have an ability which the AI is very inconsistent at using, so you'll often forget about it until it's the least convenient time possible, but they have an ability called Teleport, which allows them to just warp themselves anywhere on the map and then move and attack. So you'll be wondering, okay, we've got a good defensive wall, we should be prepared for this. A mage teleports behind you and starts attacking your healer.
Wow. What a dick.
Yeah, thankfully, like I said, the AI is very inconsistent about using it, so it doesn't get too ridiculous, but at the same time, that's a mechanic I could do without having to worry about, frankly.
Yeah, honestly, I can see why.
But yeah, I think those are the only negatives I can think of. Like, the only other negative is in terms of the story, Act 4 kind of suffers a bit because a large chunk of the drama is based around a character making a really, really, really dumb choice.
Oh, hi, Rob Stark.
Yeah, but aside from that, I really do recommend Fire Emblem Echoes, because it is, I don't know if I would say it's my favourite Fire Emblem game, but it is really high up there, because the mechanics have managed to balance themselves out really well, and the writing, I didn't have too much of a problem with Awakening and Fate, because it wasn't bad the way they did it, but the writing style of this is more akin to Path of Fate and Radiant Dawn, and I think that's the kind of writing style I prefer, because it's not like Fates and Awakening didn't have complexity, it's just they presented the characters like a jokey character for a gimmick, and then you had to go to supports to get more development. This time, the characters are a bit more subtler in the way they're developed, so yeah, I definitely prefer the storytelling this time round.
Honestly, good. I honestly hate nostalgia purists, but I was really starting to have issues with the way the characters were being written. Because it's just like they were constantly going with quirky characters with a little depth. So it's nice to see sort of a return to the old Fire Emblem 7 through 10 approach to development.
Indeed, yes, and the writing as well. That's another thing it has over Shadow Dragon. It actually does make a decent effort to update the relatively simplistic story, so characters are given a bit more depth. They actually go into not necessarily the politics, but some of the conflicts surrounding the situation, smoothing over plot holes so character motivations seem a bit more plausible. And it also has Bakut, who, without spoiling too much, he's basically become one of my favourite Fire Emblem villains, and that's even before you add the brilliant performance by Ian St. Clair.
I still can't get over the fact that a major villain is voiced by Ian Sinclair, a voice actor who I know best for Hetalia, specifically the infamous line, "Suck on my balls, you damn potato eater."
Yeah, I'd say this performance is the opposite end of the spectrum. That's like an actor going from working in a Michael Bay film to Shakespeare.
Or, alternately, it's the reverse version of Travis Willingham going from Full Metal Alchemist to voicing Charlotte in Bleach. Still not over that.
But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of my opinions of Fire Emblem Echoes. I could go on, but again, I'd rather not spoil Sven or anyone else too much about this game, so I will just say it is definitely worth a play, and once you get your head around the new mechanics, or old mechanics, I guess is the better term, you'll be perfectly fine with it. In fact, it also works as a nice observation of Fire Emblem history, because once you've played it, you then realize that a lot of what Fire Emblem 8 Sacred Stones was trying to do was meant to be a throwback to this, and in my opinion also makes me realize that that Sacred Stones wasn't a very good throwback.
No. I mean, Sacred Stones was way better than Shadow Dragon, but aside from that, there's not much good in general to be said about it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where they made the throwback, but kind of missed what the whole point of it was. Like, they had the two separate protagonists, one male, one female, but rather than having two separate campaigns going side by side, they just had them meeting at one point and then just going, okay, well, one of the protagonists goes away for a bit and the rest will just transfer their army onto that one. Okay, good, let's go. The trainees were thrown back to the villagers, but without the multiple options of classes that made them entertaining.
Oh god, you're not even wrong.
And of course, monsters everywhere, but without the compelling villain. Well, Leon was kind of okay, but not that great.
He would have been way better if he was consistent, but I'll put it this way. His character development was still way better than Ephraim's.
Yeah, that is entirely fair.
Yes, Ephraim. The Fire Emblem version of Rob Stark, except instead of getting himself killed, he gets everyone else killed.
Well done, Ephraim. Anyway.
The old line.
Yeah, so old I doubt anyone will get it. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Fire Emblem Echoes. So yeah, if you have the money for it and you're a fan of Fire Emblem, I definitely recommend picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not a Fire Emblem fanatic, which I am, it still seems like a good purchase.
Indeed. Oh yeah, and also, one other throwback feature they completely missed. They gave you the explorable map, but completely missed the point that the reason why everyone liked it in Gaiden was because you could actually enter towns and dungeons.
Yeah, instead of slog through the same two dungeons again and again and again and again. Admittedly, though, that was fun because you could end up using literally any unit. Except Gilliam, with his tendency to miss 4 times in a row against a Revenant on a 96. I'm still not over that.
Yeah, luck has not been on my side, because I will admit that's happened to me with a 90%.
I'll also note that Sacred Stones provided my first instance of the infamous 1% critical. Thank you, Riev.
But yeah, to stop myself going around in circles, Fire Emblem Echoes, buy it. Okay, moving on.
That works.
So, Sven, why don't you introduce the second subject for this month?
So, in the interest of celebrating this show's 100th episode anniversary, and also providing a topic of discussion relevant to certain interests of ours lately, cough cough, Horde of the Dragon Queen, Age of Worms, etc., the two of us decided to finally take the plunge and review a series we've been sort of vaguely planning on reviewing since January. Things have come up. It's also fitting I might add that earlier in the day I mentioned Matt Mercer's starring role because this series is more or less his star-making role. Yeah, it's Critical Role. Ha ha puns.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Critical Role is a show that's on Geek and Sundry, although you can also find it on YouTube, and it is basically, as Matt Mercer explains each and every week, it's where a bunch of voice actors who have been in anime, cartoons, and video games sit down and play Dungeons & Dragons.
And let's just say that the universe that they've built since, well, episode 1 and even before that, whenever they were playing Pathfinder instead of 5e, is ridiculously in-depth. They've been going at this forever. Forever, to quote Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, to the point where Matt Mercer is now having to write a guide about it so other people can use it.
Yeah, and if you want an idea of the depth, if you want to get into this series, you had better have a month straight of free time. I calculated, and all totaled, The 101 currently aired episodes total about a month's worth of running time, including the 12-hour 100th episode.
I can honestly believe that, namely because, well, it's a D&D game, so episodes... What happens is they live stream the show and then release it onto YouTube and Geek and Sundry, so each episode ends up being about 3 hours, more likely 4 or 5.
And sometimes even longer than that.
Yeah. Only ending when Matt Mercer suddenly realizes, oh wait, it's midnight.
That's a very familiar feeling to me. The times in Horde of the Dragon Queen whenever we've looked at the clock and realized, holy crap, it's 10. The realization, holy crap, it's 10 and all of us have jobs.
Yeah. But, yeah, some of you may be wondering, okay, so why does this sound entertaining again? Well, part of it is because of, well, like Sven said, it's kind of a high caliber of tabletop roleplay, and the fact that Matt Mercer has been going on for so long, he's literally fleshed out this entire world to ridiculous lengths, but...
Yeah, may I add that he's recently set a record for most roles played by any actor, just on account of Critical Role, wherein he voices 544 characters.
Yeah. But on top of that, I'm going to have to steal a point from Game Master Fell on DeviantArt, who hit the nail on the head on why it works so well. Because a lot of people have been making shows based around D&D. In fact, spoiler alert, that's basically what Project Dungeon amounts to.
As some of you may have guessed, and as one of us already knows because he's the showrunner, founder, and DM of that game.
Yeah. But the reason why it works so well is because they are voice actors. A lot of these D&D shows, they've been entertaining, but they're often played by people who, well, they're essentially playing for the fun of it and see what they can get away with. Like, another good one I can recommend is, I believe it was on Stephen Play's channel, where he did a one-off where he and many members of the Runaway Guys, including Proton John, Chaka Conroy, and Messiah Nella, all got together to play a one-off session of Dungeons & Dragons, and that was fun, but it was clear that they were trying to see what they could get away with, particularly since that it ended up being, God, they ended up in a town where people eat baby meat as an export.
Oh, God. Oh, so in other words, the micro-metropolis of Trump Tower.
Yeah, sure, why not? But yeah.
I'm sorry, everyone. Actually, I'm not.
But yeah, because they're all actors, they obviously have a much better knack for getting into a character's headspace and just role-playing it naturally. So, what it means, two things. First, in terms of the comedy, they have natural comedic timing that just makes it hilarious.
Yeah. And on top of that, they are incredible actors, hence why they're successful.
Indeed, when serious stuff does happen, holy crap.
Yeah, like character deaths, except for that one character death.
Yeah.
Jonin knows which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that one time it happened because...
Incredible poor judgment.
Yeah, basically. Let's just say you shouldn't imitate Pocahontas and move on.
Let's also say that you should never imitate Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, especially. Because they're all really good actors, it really helps for them to get into character and first get invested in the show. Because, yeah, there's drama along the way, but they really do sell it so that even though essentially what you're seeing on screen is a bunch of people sitting around a table and occasionally rolling dice, the way they describe it and the way they perform each and every line, each and every moment, really does conjure up a dramatic image that has you invested 100%.
And again, it's helped that everyone involved is a fantastic role player and actor. I mean, anyone who's looking for a fine example of that can just take a look at all of Talus and Jaffe.
So, I guess we should probably explain for those who don't know who the main players are. Starting from left to right, we have Liam O'Brien, who some of you may remember as War from Darksiders and Gaara from Naruto, playing the rogue half-elf Vax. And then right next to him is Laura Bailey, who plays his twin sister Vex, a ranger that has a pet bear named Trinket following her around. And Laura Bailey, for those of you who don't know, is currently playing Chun-Li in Street Fighter, but she has played many significant characters, including Lust from Fullmetal Alchemist,
Halibel from Bleach,
Mana from Dawn of the New World. She's played a lot of roles.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who knows anything about voice acting will instantly recognize Laura Bailey.
Yep. Then, next to her, although she's on and off because she's also filming some live-action stuff, is Ashley Johnson, who plays Pike the Gnome Cleric. Then next to her is Travis Willingham, playing the big dumb barbarian Goliath Grog.
Never have I seen a man have so much fun with a character.
Mainly because, to quote a line from the first episode, I have an intelligence of 6. I know what I'm doing.
Oh god, Grog legitimately sometimes reminds me of one of our party members in Project Dungeon.
Yeah, just sometimes he just plays off the completely dumb in such a lovable way.
Yeah, Grog's character basically ranges from fantastically epic to epically funny.
Yeah. Again, mild spoiler, he's the only person who decides to get into a haggle with a merchant and accidentally pays more than what he's supposed to.
Oh, the party never let him hear the end of that one.
Then going down, you have Sam Riegel, who most people commonly know for playing Phoenix Wright, and he plays the walking libido that is basically Scamlin Shortholt, the gnome bard.
That's a perfect way of describing him. Also a character that makes a point of breaking the fourth wall in every way that he can. I mean, his nickname is, I swear this is true, Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, that's the fake identity he uses every time he's trying to trick someone. There's a point where even Matt Mercer, in an intimidating dragon voice, goes, "Very well, Bert."
It's just as fantastic as it sounds.
And then next to him we have Taliesin Jaffe, who plays the human gunslinger Percy, which is short for a very long noble name I am not going to attempt here.
I do believe you mean Percival Frederickstein von Musel-Klasowski de Rollo III.
Damn you.
You're welcome. and of course, most anime fans will know Taliesin Jaffe as the director of Hellsing, so you sort of get this sense that the gunslinger character archetype is very appropriate.
He's also the Cohen voice of Blanca, although that does not play anything into this.
Not in the slightest.
And finally, the last consistent member, there used to be at the very start Orion. Oh, I forget how you pronounce his last name.
Orion Akaba.
Thank you. Orion Akaba, who played the Dragonborn sorcerer Tiberius, but then he had to step out due to personal reasons. And finally, you have Marisha Ray, who freely admits that she often plays soldier characters in stuff like Battlefront, and in Fire Emblem she also voices Effie, playing the socially awkward half-elven druid Keelik.
Yeah, and may I just add that Keyleth is the complete opposite of the other character she voices in Fire Emblem Fates, Obero.
Yeah. In that she is incredibly powerful but very socially awkward.
Yeah, at times the phrase adorkable comes to mind, and, well, spoilers, we may have mentioned poor judgment earlier. Sometimes that 22 wisdom of Keyleth manifests in really weird ways.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but, so yeah, you've got this motley band of characters, and, it's always fun to see them bounce off each other and see just what kind of weird situations they get into, because what's actually really keen about this group is that you have so many different styles of roleplay there, because you've got people like Taliesin and Liam O'Brien who get very serious into the roleplay. Like, they often make jokes, don't get me wrong. In fact, one of the things Liam likes to do as Vax is pull pranks on people whenever he sees the opportunity.
Yeah, beyond the existence of Scanlan, Vex is what you might call the group Lil.
Yeah. Oh, that Vax, not Vex. There's a very distinct.
Yeah. Yeah, believe me, that screw-up is so prevalent that even Liam and Laura do it.
Yeah.
And they play the characters.
Yeah, and it's admittedly a joke that's played often. In fact, there's one character who enters a little bit closer by saying, "Did your parents not love you? Because that sounds like something that could get very confusing."
Ooh, harsh. I totally forgot about that line.
Yeah. But yeah, with the exception of those pranked comedic moments, they often play their characters very serious, very straight. In fact, Brit often gets very intense and very focused in his roleplay, like centered in that moment. And then you have the likes of Sam Riegel and Travis, who are basically just seeing what they can get away with.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Travis, of course, gets into it sometimes, by which I mean he hams it up insanely as Grog at times. But Travis is sort of the D&D player that I most relate to, because he spends most sessions laughing his ass off.
Indeed, and likewise on balance, they do get some serious drama moments, but, well, when you see some of the crap Scanlan gets up to, it's
Yeah, I mean, you could just look at their stats. Grog is dumb as a brick, and Scanlan has 4 wisdom. No common sense. His wisdom is so low it almost causes a singularity.
I mean, this is a guy who thinks, how do I get the ladies to like me with my battle prowess? I know, I will shoot lightning from my crotch. Yes, this is a thing.
I know it sounds like something out of a Jack Black movie, but it happened.
Indeed, so you have these really good role players and a party dynamic that is just so incredibly entertaining to watch, because you do get some serious drama scenes and you also get some frankly divine comedy.
Yeah, and that's not even getting into the occasional guest stars, like my personal favorite, Patrick Rothfuss, who plays, well, basically the badass grandpa who has seen some You also have the likes of Mary Elizabeth McGlynn playing a wonderfully grumpy but wonderfully charming tiefling warlock. And then there's Will Wheaton. The infamous anti-Taliesin, who can't seem to roll above 3.
Yeah, these rolls were just so incredibly bad, to the point where Matt Mercer started experimenting by swapping dice just to see what would happen.
I quote, "The curse doesn't care which die is cast." And I quote another line from Will, "Just in case any of you thought that we had slipped into an alternate reality where I was competent or in any way capable of doing anything, I did in fact just roll another one."
And then there's also Chris Hardwick as the surprisingly lovable necromancer Gerd Blanston.
Yep, Dragonborn of the Dead.
Yeah, that was just weird. So
even the people who only show up for like 1 or 2 episodes hold their own and provide something irreplaceable to the party dynamic, and that just shows you how good of role players these people are.
Yeah, I mean, this is also mentioned that because it definitely has a good atmosphere, because a lot of these people, you get some characters, you get some people that are like first timers to D&D, so you get the likes of Will Fidel and John Heddle, who are first time players, so they have to keep checking the rules, but because they're enjoying the acting and performing these roles, they just get so well into it, and it's really fun to watch. Especially when Cachot is quite possibly the most deadpan person in the entire game, and that's an achievement.
Yeah, I mean, that's saying something in a party that also has Vex and Percy. So yeah, the acting talent on display here is frankly amazing.
It honestly makes for a really fun show from start to finish, and yeah, it's pretty much what got me into D&D, because I had heard about its existence, but I wasn't really 100% sure how to play it or if I would even be interested. Then I started watching this show, and let's just say I was pretty much saying to everyone, oh god, my biggest lament is that I want to join a D&D game, but I can't find anyone. And lo and behold, I'm in one campaign and I'm almost about to be set up for a second, if all goes planned. So
Fist of the Orc Star. And incidentally, it's funny you should say that because Critical Role got me back into it. It's a long story as to how I wound up playing my first campaign, but let's just say that the first run of Age of Worms sucked. Because the guy running it was a raging cloaca.
Yeah.
So I sort of fell out of it and was really sort of intimidated to ever start it up again because I didn't want to have such a ball-bustingly hard experience again. And then Critical Role happened and I fell in love with 5e.
Yeah, 5e is a really good system for first-time roleplayers.
Especially compared to my introduction, 3.5, which can only be described as a comedy of errors.
Honestly, the only real negative I can put on the show itself is, well, occasionally you have some moments where the show grinds to a halt as they're trying to figure out a plan, but then again, that's just par for the course for D&D. Sometimes you just spend ages debating whether or not you can go ahead with certain plot points on them.
And of course, occasionally somebody has to look at the rule book, because in any edition, there are thousands of rules.
Indeed, and occasionally someone will ask us a question like, can I use a tidal wave to knock over a 5-foot tower?
Or, what was it that one character tried to do? Can I combine a fireball and a sleeping spell?
Oh god, yeah.
Now may be a good time for me to point out one of Matt Mercer's 2 catchphrases. You can certainly try.
Yeah, that's basically his way of saying, look, unless you get a natural 20, you're not succeeding.
And I mean, sometimes it's worth the risk.
It wasn't in that case, but yeah.
Nope, explosions happened.
Indeed, yes. But yeah, honestly, apart from that, the only really negatives I can say about the show are technically not the show's fault itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great show, as long as you don't mind staying away from the fandom.
It's not even so much the fandom, really, because honestly, one of the things you often continues to remind is how creative and engaged the fans are, because the break between streams is the selection of artwork of people either drawing the characters or bringing certain scenes to life, and it's also amazingly well done, and you realize, wow, so many creative people are invested in this series, which kind of just shows how much positive creativity is going into the series. Just don't read the comments.
Yeah, and then you get well, the usual crowd. I say the usual crowd because there are some people who take D&D as an art form. In one way or another, I've encountered plenty of them, and let's just say that Critical Role has more than its fair share of people who I liken to WWE's smart marks.
Yeah, basically the long and short of it is try not to read the comments, because you can find some people who are making positive comments or useful timestamps if you're trying to get to a certain point of an episode, but you also get pricks who, well, I'm going to use a term that Gast came up with because of something that he found really annoying in the comment sections of his Fire Emblem Echoes Let's Play: backseat gaming. I've lost count the number of times I'll scroll down the comments and people are flipping this over. Well, why didn't they do this? Why aren't they playing the character this way? And Sven mentioned Keylif's 22 points of wisdom. Every time Marissa Ray does anything, you will get people continuously bitching about how, oh, she has 22 wisdom, but she can't clearly see my point, which is entirely logical. Or why did she take that ridiculous job when she should have known? Like, okay, the reason why you can't do that, one, many other D&D players will point out that, yeah, stats can be a guide, but they're not the be and end all of how a character should act. Second, you can't really review this in the same way as an actual story, because when a character does an action in a story, that has been written by a writer who has had plenty of time to write it down, think about the action, consider whether or not it's a good idea, and maybe edit it if they realise, hang on, no, the character wouldn't have acted that way, or, yeah, this seems to be a bit overreacted. But The thing about D&D is that it's in the moment. It's improv. Like, yeah, with the hindsight of a YouTube commenter, yeah, of course you can come up with perfect plan that should have happened, or this perfect philosophical argument for why she should have sided with one group over another. But again, it's improv. Very few people can think of that shit off the top of their heads, you know?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're the cast of Whose Line, it's sort of difficult, even if you're an established, very good actor.
Yeah, it just gets so frustrating to see people continuously nitpicking over all of these things and acting like these people have somehow committed great offenses just because the characters didn't do what they would have done in the situation, which it just gets frustrating to read after a while.
Yeah, and may I just add a third point to the two you brought up? Guys, Critical Role fans, I want you to listen to me carefully on this one. The reason why they don't do everything you ask them to is, and I want you to pay attention now, it's not your character, you f***ing walnut.
Yeah, it does get to the point where you have to point out, look, it's their game, just let them have fun. Most people don't normally stream their games for you to watch like this.
Yeah, I mean, just be grateful that they're doing this. And I know it's difficult for the likes of you, but try to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand that occasional frustration of, oh, if only they had done this, but there's a difference between wishing things had gone a certain way and demanding that things have gone a certain way, you know? I mean, these are fans who, I kid you not, after Marisha Ray made one mistake in an episode, and you could argue whether or not it was actually a mistake or not. Some people were calling for Matt Mercer to break off his engagement with her. I am dead f***ing serious.
I mean, it's like I said, it's like those people in WWE who take the whole heel hatred thing to personal levels, because clearly this is the most serious of business.
It's just one of those things that gets really frustrating after a while, and that can kind of undermine the show, but again, that's not their fault. If you basically don't read the comments section, the show itself, it's just filled with so much positivity, energy, and emotional investment that you just can't help but love it, really.
Yeah, and if you can tolerate the fact that if you look at the comments section even once, you're gonna want to commit a how do you want to do this on one of the fans, you're gonna really enjoy Critical Role.
Yeah, that's Matt Mercer's other catchphrase. He lets them decide how to kill their opponents.
I'll put it to you this way.
Fatality.
That is essentially what it is, yeah. Especially given some of the creative deaths the cast have come up with for their foes over the years.
And sometimes really epic deaths. I point you to that one where Grog pokeballed it in midair.
Oh god, yes.
That was awesome.
Oh god, yes.
Also, my personal favorite, Carrick the Dragon Slayer.
Oh god, yes.
I would say more, but that would spoil literally everything that happens in about the last quarter of the story.
Yeah, in my case, I would say some of my favorite how do you want to do this moments are Grog's unintended bro-shaming and Rhinefan's death.
Oh yeah, excellent choices. May I also throw in Scanlan shaming a ghost to death?
Oh god, yes, but yeah, I think at this point, if we go on any further, it would basically just be quoting lines and describing story moments word for word. So, yeah, the long and short of it is, Critical Role is a show that's just, yeah, if you like fantasy stories or just watching people have fun in a game, or just watching actors do what they do best, I cannot recommend the show enough.
Yeah, or if you just like complete live-streamed madness, because you're gonna get plenty of that too.
Indeed, yes. There is like 100 episodes worth of content, but if you can multitask and do stuff in the background, that's pretty much what I do every time I'm editing nowadays. Then the time just flies by. And also, well, let's just say that they're almost reaching the end of this campaign, so we might start off with a new cast, which is something I'm actually looking forward to seeing how they do it.
Yeah, and may I just add that the biggest thing I've always wanted from Critical Role is a guest appearance by Vin Diesel, the legendary D&D nerd. So I'm hoping that happens in the next campaign.
Yeah, it would be nice to see if they can get him.
But Yeah, essentially what we're saying is, a few unfortunate smarks aside, we cannot recommend Critical Role enough. This is basically just a shining endorsement from, admittedly, a couple of reviewers whose opinion on the subject only matters to about 5 people. It's still our shining endorsement.
Indeed, yes. And now it's time to close off the show with our final section,
Quickfire Reviews!
This is the section where me and Sven review something else we've read, watched, or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Although, honestly, in a strange reversal of fortune, I'm tapped out, so Sven, you will now have the sole quickfire review this month.
In this review, I am the Undertaker to your Kane.
Okay, so, with that confusing wrestling analogy, your time starts now.
Xenonauts, the spiritual successor to the original XCOM games, well, before XCOM Remake came out, essentially the same concept as XCOM, a third-person strategy shooter game where you do a lot of fighting with aliens, and may I just say this? For one, difficulty curve. For two, I thought my aim was bad in XCOM.
Oh dear.
Oh, I've become a master of save scumming. I've seen soldiers miss with sniper rifles on 95% hit chances.
Yeah, I do remember your stories about misfiring in XCOM as well.
The spiritual successor stays true to form, but it's fun.
Well, that's
in a
good, at least.
masochistic way.
That's maybe not so good.
Basically, if a part of you actually really deeply hates yourself, you're gonna love this game.
And on that note, as always, thank you guys for listening and for contributing questions and just keeping the show going with comments and the like. But it's time for us to leave for another month. Until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. If at any point any of you just want to underhand throw any questions into our hat, well, you can certainly try.
Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright was misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey and go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!